Okay, let's continue on with the Unit 1 review. When it says simplify and it's all just numbers, this is where we follow order of operations. So if I'm looking at this, I just have to perform the operations in order. Remember, you do the grouping symbols first, you do the exponents, then you do multiplication and division from left to right, and then you do addition and subtraction from left to right. Okay, so here the only thing I have to do is subtract. But what I want to remember here is that subtracting a negative, this is the same thing as 1.7 plus 2.2. And when you add those together, you get 3.9. Okay. So the next one here, we've got all addition and subtraction, which means I have to do this from left to right. So I'm going to start here and do 3 plus negative 5, which gives me negative 2. Then I have negative 2 minus 2, which becomes negative 4. And then I'm going to take my negative 4 minus negative 6, which gives me negative 4 plus 6. So my final answer is 2. On 28, if I am adding or subtracting fractions, then that means I have to have a common denominator. If it's not, I have to find one. If I do have a common denominator, then I simply combine the numerators. So here I have a common denominator of 3. So this can become 5 minus 2 over 3. 5 minus 2 is 3 over 3, which becomes 1. On 29, they do not have like denominators. Now, most of us could tell that the least common denominator will be 4. If you can't, 4 is equal to 2 times 2. 2 is just equal to 2. So the least common denominator has to have a factor of 2 and a factor of 2, so that means it's 4. So that means I have to take each of these fractions and turn it into a fraction over 4. Well, 3 over 4 is already divided by 4. But 3 halves isn't. So I have to multiply it by 1 in some form to turn this into a 4. Well, the factor that's missing here is a 2, so I'm going to multiply by 2 over 2. So that becomes 3 over 4 plus 6 over 4. Now that they have the same denominator, this becomes 3 plus 6 over 4, which becomes 9 over 4, and that cannot be simplified. Okay, if I'm multiplying and I have a bunch of terms, then again I just do the multiplication from left to right. But also, as I'm thinking about it, since I have an odd number of negative signs, I know my result is going to be negative. But I'm just going to start out here at negative 3 times negative 2 is 6. And then 6 times 4 gives me 24. And then 24 times negative 5 is negative 120. And that's the simplified form. If I am multiplying fractions, I know I multiply straight across, so this becomes negative 2 times negative 10 divided by 5 times 7. So that becomes negative times negative is 20 over 35. And now I want to see if I can simplify it. Well, I know since this ends in 0 and this ends in 5, both of them are divisible by 5. So from here I can write this as 4 times 5 divided by 7 times 5. Anything divided by itself becomes 1, so the simplified form of this is 4 over 7. If I'm multiplying a number times a fraction, I have to just put it over 1 to turn it into a fraction. So this becomes 8 times negative 5 divided by 1 times 2, which becomes negative 40 divided by 2. Well, and negative 40 divided by 2 gives me a final result of negative 20. If I have 14 divided by negative 7, okay, well, I can tell, all right, well, that's negative 2, so that's pretty easy. Or I can think about it, this is the same thing as saying 14 times negative 1 over 7, which becomes negative 14 over 7, which these two things mean exactly the same thing, which becomes negative 2. Okay, if I have 0 divided by a number, that's okay. 0 divided by anything is just 0. If I have 4/5 divided by 2, this is the same thing as saying 4/5 times the reciprocal. So if I make this 2 over 1 times 1 over 2. So that becomes 4 over 10. These are both even numbers, so this becomes 2 over 5. And that can't be simplified any further. If I have the absolute value of 3 minus 8, absolute value signs are grouping symbols, so I have to do what's inside first. So 3 minus 8 gives me the absolute value of negative 5, which is 5. (37) and 38, I cannot emphasize this enough. If you have, this means the opposite of 3 squared. Your order of operations means you're going to take the 3 in the square into the second, and then you're going to take its opposite. So this becomes the opposite of 3 times 3, which is negative 9. If I have the negative sign in the parentheses, this means negative 3 times negative 3, which gives you a positive 9. Okay, on 39, my operations are division and multiplication. I have to do these in order from left to right, which means I am going to do the division first. So, negative negative 200 divided by 5 is negative 40. And then I'm going to multiply that times negative 5, which gives me a positive 200. Okay, if I have 5 minus 2 times 3 plus 5 squared, the first thing I have to do is the 5 squared, which becomes 25. So that gives me 5 minus 2 times 3 plus 25. Now I have to do 3 plus 25, which is 28. So I have 5 minus 2 times 28. Now I have to do 2 times 28, which is 56. So 5 minus 56 gives me a negative 51. And this is one on the key. I think it says positive, but I put it in I've shown the corrections on here. Okay, 41. I have to get rid of the parentheses. I have to get rid of the exponent. I have to do my multiplication and division, and then I do my addition. Okay, so we got a lot of steps on this one. So 4 minus 6 gives me negative 2. So I have negative 2 squared plus 12 divided by 4 times 3. Negative 2 squared, just like 37. This is negative 2 times negative 2, which is 4, plus 12 divided by 4 times 3. Now I have to do my division, because division and multiplication have the same weight. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. So I now have 4 plus 3 times 3. 3 times 3 gives me 9. And when I have 4 plus 9, my final answer is 13. Okay, if I'm asked to simplify and there are variables, there are only two things I can do. I can distribute if there are parentheses, and then I combine like terms. Okay, so here there are no parentheses, so all I'm going to do is look for like terms. So I start out with a 5m, and I have 2m, so that gives me 7m. I have a positive 6 and a negative 7n, so that's minus 1n. Or I can just write 7m minus n. Okay, here I'm going to have to do two things. I'm going to have to distribute and then look to see if I have any like terms. So negative 3. So this becomes 2a minus 12a plus 21. (2a) and negative 12a are like terms. 2 plus negative 12, or 2 minus 12, is negative 10a plus 21. And I should be boxing all of these as the total answer. Okay. All right, I have 8 minus all of this in parentheses. There are two ways I can do it. I can think about this as a negative 1 that I'm going to distribute, or I can just think, well, this means that it's adding the opposite of everything in here. So whichever one you like. But either way I do this, the 8x, I'm not going to do anything with it in the first step. But since I'm taking the opposite of 2x is negative 2x. The opposite of 3x squared is is also a negative 3x squared. Now I look to combine my like terms. I have 8x, negative 2x. That gives me 6x. These two can't be combined because like terms have to have the same variable and the same exponent. So this is all you can do with that. Okay, I think I'll stop here before we start solving.